Should we try that again? I mean, this has been like 2 years off, hasn't it? Good morning, Scotland. Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be back, particularly for the Stornoway black pudding. It was fantastic at breakfast. Right, that's probably a bad idea. We'll see this light fitting come off the wall in a minute. Thank you for making the effort. I'm hopefully gonna try and make it worth your while this morning. My name's Damian mcgillicuddy, and I have the honour of being on first. I have been told I'm not allowed to run over like I normally do, so I'll try and keep this as information-packed as possible. Can we just give Ellen Crom a wave at the back as they're taking pictures there? Don't bother, it was only Simon. Just trying to be helpful. Right, okay. How are we all after the 2-year hiatus? Just so I get an idea of who I'm talking to. How many of you are full-time photographers and earn your living that way and no other way? Brilliant. How many of you have part-time photography businesses? How many of you just take pictures for the pure pleasure of taking pictures? You lucky, lucky people. Those last people that have just put their hands up, do you have any desire to make money from your photography? No, just the one or two of you. So this is for you, madam. This is all for you. Right, okay. Why do you take pictures? I'm ahead of myself on the slides already, aren't I? That was clever, Damien. Is it passion or profit? Why do you do it? Now, that's a really important point. Why do you take pictures? So, I take pictures because it's how I earn my living. It's what I've done for the last nearly 5 years. And it's really all that I know. But for me, the pandemic was a really good thing. It gave me time to stop and think and reevaluate. Now, I don't know how many of you know anything about me, but for the past 15 years, I've run a continuous professional development programme called Mentor Me on steroids, which grew out of the Society's mentoring programme, because I used to do that for them. And cutting a long story short, we did lose people because they suffered business-wise, but post-pandemic, I can tell you that every one of the 47 studios I deal with has seen an increase in their average sales. And people seem to appreciate more now the value of a good picture. But if you're earning money from it, there's almost a shift away. Now, what happened during the pandemic is my wife Leslie said to me, I've had enough, I don't want to do this anymore. And I thought it was, does she mean sell up and go and move over to Lanzarote? And it wasn't. She said, I've spent 20 years shooting babies and shooting children and shooting families, and my knees are a bit knackered now and I just don't want to do it anymore. If I'm going to take pictures, I want to do something that I want to do. So I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to photograph dogs. I want to do it exclusively just dogs. So we took the pandemic period to change the ground floor of our studio building and rebrand it just so Leslie can do what Leslie wants to do. Now for us, 2 or 3 sessions a week downstairs is more than enough. And she's averaging about 800 quid a session, which again is reasonable. Not brilliant, but reasonable. And then I decided, you know what, Leslie's absolutely right. I only want to do the things that I want to do. Now probably like many of you, actually it might be different in Scotland, but let's not get into that. Let's not get into the fact that I would like to devolve myself from Westminster and come and live up here actually. But we didn't get any help, any support really as company directors. So we found like a little niche. You know how people all of a sudden started, you know, getting fit during the lockdown and working out in the garages and running, and so you can tell I obviously got into it heavily, maybe 30 years ago. But we were told that we could stay open because we were a commercial studio. It didn't matter that there was nobody wanting to come in, but we could stay open because we were commercial. And then all of a sudden we started to get people that were into fitness and transformations and you know, working out, asking could we do pictures for them. So we decided I'd pivot my personal business that way a little bit more. So this is actually just a little sample, and this is an actual client. These are the first sort of people that we shot. And I just want to, there's a reason I'm telling you this, as we'll see, but I just thought I would share some real live work, if that's okay. Hopefully the music will work, otherwise you'll see Colin running over in a panic, but let's just see. And this is exactly how we sort of present the slides, or we present the show to the client. Right, music isn't working, but it doesn't matter. Trouble is, mate, I'm going to be shooting that way in a minute, so you know, anybody that side at the front might want to go the other way. Just imagine nice soothing music. Oh, there is music, it's just not loud. Colin, can you turn that sound up? He said he'd hang around, but obviously he's not. So what we were shooting, it's all about self-empowerment. It's about making sure that people are recording what they're doing. But one of the things that you can just hear the music. I'll just shut up for 2 seconds. Better late than never, ladies and gentlemen. Now don't want you to be confused, I'm not just showing you a set of selfies. That's actually a sales presentation, exactly as we showed those clients when they first came in. And just being honest, they really probably saved our business, and it was that pivot, that moving over to a new market, that was instrumental in keeping us busy and keeping us going. So, you know, one of the things that's really important though, that we seem to start missing in our industry now, is what we actually should be doing and what we should be thinking about and how we should be doing things. So I'm going to ask you a question. What's our most valuable asset as a business, as an industry, as anything? Anybody got any ideas? Most people miss this because the answer very simply is time. So one of the most important things is maximising the impact of that time. So, you know, there's a question of, do you ever feel a slave to your computer? Are you a slave to Lightroom, Photoshop, plugins? One of the things that's really important to me, and I've built my career around qualifications and winning things, you know, 18 fellowships, over 900 awards, 16 Photographer of the Year titles, all are very important. But there comes a time in a photographer's career, and maybe it's a point our industry's got to, that we all fall into this art hole. I have to be really careful when I say that. And we worry about the picture more than anything, and we forget that our most valuable asset is time. So let's remind ourselves, it's time, most valuable asset. So what do we have to do to make a difference? How can we make ourselves have impact on our business, grow more? And the wonderful thing about photography is it is a lifestyle business. You know, we've got people that we've mentored into, you know, literally probably over 100 worthwhile side hustles where people are bringing in 30, 35, 40,000 quid a year, and dozens of people who've been mentored into six-figure businesses. But artistry is important, we can't ignore that, right? You can't sell rubbish. But the answer to making more money is increasing our in-camera skills and shooting to a professional plan. So I was getting into the habit of clients coming in, I sort of knew what they wanted it, and I was winging it, and I was getting stuck in a rut, and I was doing the same thing day in, day out, time in, time out for the client. And that wasn't developing what we wanted into making a decent business. And I've literally talked to thousands of photographers over my years doing a speaking career, and over the 35 years, the nearer we've got to this point today, the more I've realised that people are sort of shying away from light, shying away from our raw material, and getting, I've done it myself. I mean, when we first started and went digital, we went through this little phase where I'd be lazy and I'd be sloppy, and I'd say, oh, I'll fix it in post. But that's where we lose money. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with post-production. Every image needs post-production, every one. But there has to be a balanced approach to what we're doing. And if you're scared of the raw material, then we do sort of take pictures and then spend an inordinate amount of time building them up in post-production. But our raw material, the thing we build with, it only has 4 properties. And they're all easy to understand. I mean, to be honest, and as you probably gathered at this point, I am not the sharpest tool in the box, by a long way. So, if you look at the properties of our raw material together, it's literally brightness, colour, contrast, and direction. There's nothing more, there's nothing else to add. Brightness, how much light is there, the volume of light. Colour, what temperature of light are you using for the effect? Contrast, how big or how small is the modifier to change the delineation line in the shadow and the depth in the picture? And direction, where's it coming from? That's it, there's nothing more magical than that. But again, I've noticed in the industry that we were just going through the motions, we weren't doing anything important. And we were getting stale, we were just becoming humdrum, we were just becoming average as an industry. Now I can tell you without reservation that there is an increased desire in the marketplace for photography. Whether it's a full-time business, or it's a worthwhile side hustle, or it's just you making sure that you're covering the cost of the equipment for your passion, and you're doing a little bit of photography on the side. Doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned, as long as we're actually valuing photography and we're not giving it away for free. But there is a huge secret that everybody doesn't talk about, especially people in my position where you stood at the front of a group of lovely people like yourselves. So the thing that people never ever talk about before you start is asking yourself, what are you trying to say? Why are you taking the picture? What's the reason? Now, there's only possibly two paths you can go down to on that answer. One is, you as an artist are trying to say something to make a statement with your work, or you're supplying a need for the client. And that need for the client could be, just make me look as good as I possibly can be, or it could be, let's make me into a position of authority, because the other thing that's growing at the moment are the sort of, well, let's be honest, 2 years of being on Zoom has made everybody realise that they need to be represented reasonably well as a picture. So if you sort of hive it back to what are you trying to say, then it comes down to how you build your light. So for me, I'm going to take Colin's portrait, unless I can see somebody in the audience whose face I think is, everybody's doing this now, so like, please God, don't pick on me. Is there anybody that would like to volunteer to have the picture taken? I'm looking for a rugged gentleman actually. Go on, right? Because I like this. I like what's going on. Right. So let's get you sat down. So in my world, I have to make a reasonable picture with whatever I've got to hand. So until that didn't mean to come out that way. I meant other than the subject, what I've got to hand. So when I came in here this morning, I didn't know what the backgrounds were like. I assumed there'd be a blank wall. There isn't. So I've had a look round, and probably the most interesting thing I can find to make me background is that curtain. But I'm not entirely sure how much of that curtain I want to see. So when I'm taking pictures now, how should we make him look? Should we give him a bit of drama? Should we make him look mean, macho and moody? Should we make him look... do you fancy a bit of mean, macho and moody? Right, we'll go down the mean, macho and moody route. So right, there's the secret. I now know what I'm trying to say. So if I know what I'm trying to say, then how I construct brightness, colour, contrast and direction starts to become easier. And if it's easier, it's quicker. If it's quicker, I'm saving time. So if I'm going to get the effect I want as quickly as I possibly can, and just by the way, anybody that put the hand up there to volunteer for a picture, when I finish this, I will be over there and we're doing a little thing for charity. Now you can come and talk to me anyway, but if you want to come and talk to me for half an hour exclusively about lighting, or about marketing, or having a portfolio review, or anything you want to do about photography, give me a minimum donation of £10 for the hour and a line, you've got me for half an hour. If you want to come and talk to me anyway, by all means, you don't have to give a donation, but that's what we're trying to do on the roadshow. Because I don't know if many of you know this. We worked out last night, I've known Colin Jones since he was probably 4 or 5 years old. Obviously I'm a Time Lord. And Colin is an active member of Real Life Boat Crew. And knowing him grow up from being a little boy, I'm relatively close to that family, and it worries me every time he goes out on a shout, because lifeboat crew members sometimes don't come back. So anything that I can do to help raise money and show Colin a little bit of appreciation for what he does, because I know if he's in here now listening, he'll be mortified that I've mentioned this, because he's quite a private bloke. But it's well worth a round of applause, and if he turns up at some point, we might give him one. But that's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day. So anybody that wanted to be photographed, I'm just going to move all my lights that side. And again, for a £10 donation, I'll shoot you a business headshot, or whatever you want. Doesn't matter, as long as I've been told we can't shoot nudes in here. But that's what you'd enjoy. Don't be judgmental, sir. So now I have a start. I know what I'm trying to do. So I've got to do something that's got a little bit of aggression to it. And that gives me an idea of where I'm going with my lights. It gives me choices. So let's take a picture. First thing I always want to know wherever I'm shooting is how much ambient light is there. Now, I know that TTL is wonderful and our cameras are so magical these days that they almost don't need anybody to press the button. But the truth is, I want to get as much right as I can, as quick as I can, in camera. I've decided we're shooting this as a black and white, so I'm going to make my camera shoot it as a black and white. I tend to like to use my black and whites with a red filter, which is already dialed into my camera, so it's just going to make my life easier in the long run. So why do I want to know how much ambient light there is, and indeed what is ambient light? Ambient light is just the light that exists here. So the mixture of the daylight and the architectural mood lighting. So if I just wander over to the gentleman, jolly name, sir? Peter, well done. Because I'm at the point now where I'm actually struggling to remember my first name. So I'm just going to point this back to where I'll be taking the picture from, taking a reading, and it tells me that ISO 200, which on my camera is 320, I'd have to shoot at ½ second at f4 to get a perfectly exposed picture. Well, I'm not going to do that, so why have I bothered to do this? Very, very simply, because I'm lazy. I'm a lazy photographer. All good professional photographers should be lazy. So I'm weighing up now, how much of that can I use to help me? Because invariably, it's alright, don't worry. And please, by all means, just check who it is, because it might be important, and I'd hate you to miss it. Are we good? Fantastic, it was just a rubbish ring tune. So, if I can, I will always try and use the ambient light, and I might use it for fill, so I don't need to set up a fill light, or I might actually sometimes use it as the key light if I'm shooting outside, particularly if it's very bright, and then I'll just control the density of the shadows. So what I don't want is, I want a feeling of that background, but I don't want you to look at it and go, how busy was that curtain? I want it to be a representation, but not the truth of the picture. Does that make sense? Brilliant. So then the next thing I've got to decide is, what am I going to use as my key light? Now, we could just go on forever and ever and ever with modifiers. But if you've got a small selection that goes from sort of small contrasty specular light to big soft light, and you can do that with just umbrellas, to be honest. But as you see here, I've packed strip boxes, because I'd rather have 2 strip boxes than 1 single modifier. It's just more versatile. But for the picture, because we've said we're going to make him a bit gritty and a bit I'm going to use that 65cm rice bowl, which is pretty much like a big beauty dish. And despite what the world says, I'm probably going to actually butterfly light a man. I'm going to beauty light a man and still make him look a bit rough and rugged. So all these things that we've sort of ingested and think we know as photographers from YouTube and from the internet and from buying somebody's DVD, etc., doesn't necessarily help. Because if you're going to shoot in an ABC 1, 2, 3 formulaic way, you're either A, only going to ever look like a second class somebody else, or you're going to have pictures that look like something or somebody else's and doesn't give your own true vision. So we come back to that really important thing that I want you to understand, is what are we trying to say? What's the reason for the picture? Why are we doing it? What's it for? And once you know where you're going with that, you've got a much better and quicker way of doing things. So, smaller, more contrasty light is going to give me harsher shadows or harsher transitional lines between shadow and highlight. The delineation line, it's called. And that's what's going to create mood. So, very quickly, I'm going to start moving lights round, which is a lie, because I'm old and I'm knocking on a bit now and my legs are gone and a million and one other things, so speed is not my thing. And as I said this morning, I'm not really used to working without an assistant, which is terrible, really. I mean, it's embarrassing, but honestly, even on days off, I ring Lily up and I say, Lily, where's my camera? Well, what's going on? So now I've got to make another decision. Do I leave the outer deflector on to soften the light? Or do I take it off and go as harsh and as crispy with me light as I possibly can with what I've got here with me today? Not sure yet, so while I get that into position, I'm going to think about that. That's important. It really depends what we're going to do with the light, with the picture. What's the reason for the picture? That's important. Right, let's see if we can actually lift these things. Oh God. Right, just be very careful. I don't want to poke you in the eye with the end of my boom. Because despite what people believe, there is no claim to this. So can I ask you, can you gents just go that way for me so I just feel a bit more comfortable in the fact that I'm not going to harpoon you with any light. And then, right, let me ask you a question. Now many of you should know, although there's no reason for you to know this, that I am a chair of judges. I've been head of qualifications for a long time in the past. And we always talk about things like lighting patterns. And you know that if you want to win an award, getting a lighting pattern right is important. Do you agree? Right. Why do we have lighting patterns? Is it just to satisfy the ego of judges like me? Is it just to give me something to pick on and go, no, he's not done that right, has he? That's a bit rubbish. Is that what, does anybody know why we have lighting patterns? No? Right, that's great, because if you did, I'd have nothing to say at the front, would I? Lighting patterns are there to either tell a story or flatter a subject. It's as simple as that. And that's why we should be thinking about how are we going to light the subject? What's the story that we're trying to tell? Does that make sense? So I'm going to butterfly light him, and that basically means I'm going to get the light in front of the mask of his face at about 40-45 degrees, downward cast. It'll cut his cheekbones out so he'll look gorgeous, but it'll give him a little bit of a heavy gravitas to the picture. Now this is where it could all go stunningly wrong, because I'm hoping to come over here and actually put my money where my mouth is and hopefully in a second it will see the camera and we'll start to build the picture. Right, brilliant. So now the pressure is on because I'm going to actually show you what I'm doing. So I've got to now decide what aperture am I going to shoot this at? And this is all part of the creative process. I'm probably going to go for 5.6 on my medium format, because that's still quite a shallow depth of field. Bearing in mind, what don't I really want to see? You can speak to me honestly. Honestly, I just so love coming to Scotland. It's just the accent. It's brilliant. I made the poor girls in the hotel say things. I pretended I was a bit deaf last night. I'm sorry, can you say that again? Can you say that again? And it's just, I try and work it out. Is it because I genuinely love the accent? Or is it because I've still got a thing about Dee Hepburn and Gregory's Girl? And at least I'm being honest. Right, so what I need to do, and this is where I do need Lily, because my hands are too arthritic these days. So light is coming out in front of the mask of Peter's face. Just turn your head that way for me, Peter. Chin down slightly. Do you wear your glasses all the time? Right, you'd say, honestly, no, I don't want you to take them off. I just wanted you to lie and say, no, I don't wear them all the time. And I'd have gone, okay, you take them off then, mate. But now, what you've done is you've told everybody you wear them, so it makes my life harder. Thanks. So what I'm doing is I'm lighting with this edge of the box. This is the edge that's creating the shape. So having come to the side, I know I can move it back a couple of inches. Now this also shows how old I'm getting, because you'll notice there's a big vinyl letter C on the side of that light. So that corresponds with C on my controller. Now I'm going to do everything in manual because it's just easier in the long run. And people always say to me, oh yeah, but why don't you just do it this way, stick it on TTL, it'll be much easier. Well, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And you do have to use what you've got at hand to make things as easy as possible. But I'm going to, right, this is honest to God, you want to start taking bets how long it'll be before I trip over, pull something over, break something. So I'm now going to change my meter from reading ambient light to reading flashlight, and I'm literally just going to hold it at the end of Peter's nose, point it back to the modifier, flash the light, and it says F8. That's too much power. I don't want F8. What did I say I wanted? 5.6. So all I'm going to do is magically turn the light power down here. From that, going to dump the flash before I measure it, because if I don't dump the flash, I'm in danger of getting an erroneous reading first time out. Oh, I've gone too far the other way now. Turned it down too much, turned it up a third of a stop, dump the light, take a reading, 5.6. So I've now got what I'm after. I've also just decided, and I don't know why, it's just the artistic mood I'm in, I'm going to shoot my picture as a square. Only because I fancy it. Now, if I've decided I'm going to shoot it as a square, that doesn't mean my raw file isn't going to be able to be repurposed. But what it does mean is if I get everything right, I've less to do. It's all about biggest bang for buck. I'm using a 110mm lens, which is roughly about 80mm in 35mm terms. So it's compression of perspective that I'm looking for. So it's still going to be flattering. If I can, I tend to like these days to shoot off the back of my screen, because it reminds me and makes me feel as though the medium format is being used as a medium format used to. And there is a massive advantage from shooting at waist level. So I'm going to take two pictures for you. The first one I'm going to take at 5.6 at 125th of a second, which is the flash sync speed. Don't move, Peter, you're looking amazing. Oh, this is where I wish I had a bit more curtain. Right, could you just run over and close that gap for me, sir? You are an officer and a gentleman, thank you very much. And I'm just going to take a quick snap of Peter. Don't do anything, just look straight into the camera, chin down just a tiny bit, that's perfect. So that's 125th of a second, and then I'm going to go down to a 15th of a second. And you'll see there's no difference in Peter as it pops up. The difference is in how much of the background you can see. So on the 125th of a second, it's black, there's nothing there, it's just Peter stood out. Now that's important, because let's say I was doing a set of portraits for a legal firm. Legal people are famous for having messy offices. So I don't want there'll be confidential information in there. So I want it to reflect their environment. I don't want you to be able to read Jones versus Jones or Heard versus Depp. That would be just not de rigueur. So I've now got another ace up my sleeve, because I can decide whether I want a little bit of information or not. I'm also going to have a little look at the picture and decide, does he look enough? Well, I don't think he does. So I need to up the factor. So do you remember I said right at the beginning that do I leave the front diffuser on? Well, I'm going to take it off now, because I want that light to be a bit more aggressive. I've got to put it away somewhere sensible, otherwise when I come to the end and I'm trying to tidy up, I won't know where anything is. I'm also going to raise the height a little bit, and this is something else that we seem to have become scared of in our industry. People don't like, or photographers don't like to make changes as they go in front of client. Why not? Why do you think it has to be right first time? Surely a professional would evolve the picture into its best form, rather than just think it has to come out of the camera right first time. That makes no sense. You know, I always tell my clients this is a bit of an adventure. In my studio, all my stands are on casters, because I'll start off by taking a picture from the left and a picture from the right, and I'll pretend to have a look at it because I've already made my mind up. And the client goes, why are you doing that? And I'll go, well, have you never heard of people having the best side? And they go, oh yeah, of course, yeah. Everybody knows you've got a best side. And my excuse is I'm finding the client's best side. So I'm showing them that I'm considering their needs. I'm showing them that I'm interested in what they want. So I'm going to raise the light, and I'm also going to turn the pitch a little bit more aggressive. Now in this instance, I'm not overly bothered whether my key light gives me catch lights. I'll deal with that in a second if I have to. What I'm interested in is grit. Sorry. I'm not really, I just thought I'd pretend it, you know. You chose to sit on the front, it's a daft place really, isn't it? Right, so, again, I've got to check where it is. Now that's going to be a much more dramatic rip of light, but I've moved the light, so I have to take a light meter reading. And again, making the changes, making the meter readings, hopefully, is showing the client that I care, that I've got consideration for what they need. Because this is all part of my job. It's all part of showing the client, actually, do you know what? I know what I'm talking about. Quit reading now. So we've gained a stop by taking that off. So I want to turn the light down again and take another reading. 5, 6. Does anybody know why I'm touching the meter towards Peter's nose? No? No guesses? Sorry?
It's a big beak.
It's a big beak. Do you know that, man? There is a car park out there if you want to settle it, you know. That's a big beak. Right, People often ask me when I ask that question, they say, oh, it's because it's the nearest thing to the light. It's not. Well, it is, but it's not. I do it for a consistent point of reference. So I know that every time I take a meter reading, it's got to be in the same vein. Let's just prove that. If I'm lazy, and I just do that, what does that say? F8. So 6 inches of laziness has given me a stop out. And if I do that, then I'm in danger of having to fix the picture down the line in post-production, which is not what I want to do. So let's see, have I got what I'm after with a bit more drama. Ooh, right, okay. As it pops up by magic. There's a bit more aggression to that, isn't there? There's a bit more oomph, agreed? So I can carry on, I can make other decisions now. Well, do I want it to remain flat? No. And what did I say? I've got to solve my issue with catch lights. Well, that's quite an easy thing to do. All I need to do is not fall over everything. Put my camera down so I don't break it. And I'm going to employ another light as a little bit of, a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of fill. But more than anything, I just want to get a reflection in his eye as a catch light. Now this is where I can be even lazier, because I've already taken my meter reading. And now what I'm working in is ratios. I want this to be maybe 3 stops less, so a 4:1 ratio. So I don't necessarily now have to worry about taking another reading of that light, which is light B. What I can do, as long as I can see the damn thing, what I can do is just turn it down. I'm going to turn light C off, light B off, so the key light's off now. So this is just this light, and what it should give me is a very flat, very wishy-washy, very boring picture. But I didn't turn the wrong one off, didn't I? Honest to God, used to be professional. Not sure what's going on now. So ignore that last one. Take the next one. Just needs to be a quick snap, this. Nothing more. And you should be able to see now a very shaky but a very flat picture where I can see I've got a little bit of light on the metal frame of his glasses, which means I'll also have a little bit of catch light in there. So that's good, that's sorted itself. So now I can turn back on light C, and I can make my final decision as to whether I like the light or not. Right, can you just tip your head that way slightly and turn your head back to me slightly? That's perfect. Trying not to block my own light now. Ooh, we might start to be onto something now. Let's just move that. Nobody asked me actually, although I'm metered at ISO 200, why is my camera shooting at a 3/20th? Well, that's because I've done a test and my camera needs that extra little bit of oomph to actually meter, because all sensors are made slightly differently. So it's a good exercise. It's a good exercise to know exactly how sensitive your sensor is. The other thing that's really important in life is to decide to always take your system with you, so you're not the idiot that screws everything up and it collapses halfway through. But I would be lying to you if I told you that in my career things have always sailed perfectly. I'll just give you an example. Many years ago I got quite excited because I'd been commissioned to shoot one of my favourite bands. I can't mention who it is, but they're a big band. And I got there, and it was in an arena in Sheffield, and we got to the green room, and I said to Leslie, can you just set me up a 36-inch softbox, please? And I'm fiddling away with my kit, and I can see Leslie sliding up the wall nearer and nearer to me. And she got next to me and she said, I can't set the light up, you've left it in the car. So I'm now like, oh, I've got to make myself look a complete idiot in front of people that I think are rock gods and say, I've left my modifier in the car. Can you get a roadie to take me out again, please, so I can get it and come back in? And bear in mind, we're on the clock. And she said to me, did you put it in the car? I went, no, did you? And she went, no. So all of a sudden I'd realised that in my excitement to shoot like one of my legends of music, I hadn't bothered packing any modifiers. So I had to work with all I had in my camera bag, and that was it. And honest to God, it was one of the best pictures I took that year, but I'm bouncing light out of mirrors, off ceilings, through corners of walls, because I got no modifiers. And that's how we should be as professionals. We should be able to take the raw material and manipulate it in the way that we want to. So, where am I up to? Why are you detecting the camera? Don't do that. It's the... Of course you can ask a question. Uh-huh. Yeah, sometimes works. I'll take the arms. I mean, many years ago. Yeah. Well, right, do you want the real answer? The real answer is the angle of incidence always equals the angle of reflection. So what that means is, like a snooker ball hitting a table, the angle that the light goes in is the angle that the light comes out. So with a little bit of jiggery pokery, you can always fix it. Many years ago, and I'm talking over 20 years ago, we used to say to people, if you just nip down to your opticians and ask them to loan you a matching frame without, lenses in. But then we realised that people's faces look different behind glasses. You know how it sort of changes the magnification. So the simplest thing is to say, right, the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. So you've got to make sure that whether you tilt the glasses or whether you manipulate the light, that it is possible to get it to go in and come out without overly recording in the camera. So it's a bit like Photoshop. There's 25 ways to do the same job, and we tend to always gravitate towards the one that we find is easiest to do. So from my point of view, the more strings we have to our bow, the more we understand different ways to do things, the more we can get ourselves out of the problems we find ourselves in, like not packing your 36-inch softbox. There's the initial panic, and then there's the case of, right, I need to fix this. How do I do it? And you just think your way through it. Because light, like I've said, it's not hard. Brightness, colour, contrast, direction, that's it. It's how we choose to think about it that makes that difference. And what I'm very passionate about is not having a single ABC 1, 2, 3 answer. I mean, when we first started Meant to Me, there was a lovely guy on it, and what Graham wanted was literally, the light has to be 7'6" away from the subject at a height of 5'9" and an angle of 32 degrees. And my answer to Graham was, what happens if you're shooting in some of the places we've shot celebrities where there isn't 7'6" worth of distance? If you work to a formula, then you're stuck, it's rigid. If you work to a process and understand the process, then you can manipulate the process based on what you need to do and where you are. And that's a much, much better way of being able to do things. Does that make sense? So that your answer is right, but there are other ways of doing it as well. And the more you know those other ways, just in case stuff goes wrong. Because it's all down to the frames, isn't it? You know, if you sort of, I can't because I've got a mic on, but if you twist sunglasses, it just doesn't look right. So it's all about trying to get what is it you're trying to do. And generally, I mean, nobody comes into my studio and says, can you make me look short, fat and dumpy? I mean, I clearly think it's a rocking look. It's just not catchy, no? Don't you be smiling because you're good looking. Just stop it. It's not right. It's not fair. You're being discriminatory to short, fat, ugly old men. Right, Peter's obviously fed up now because he's changed his pose, but we're nearly there, right? We're nearly at the back end of what we're trying to do. So, I've got a bit of texture and a little bit of detail in the background. I've got that sort of hard, bitten look to his face that shows a little bit of texture. I've got that fill back, so I've got my catch light. I've got a spare light. Am I going to use it or not? Well, I probably am. I'm going to. I've decided I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it as an accent light to carve Peter out of the background. So none of this is pre-planned. None of this has all come from asking you lot, what sort of mood are we going for? And I'm literally making it up as I go along. What I do know is I want to grid this light. Now, putting a grid on a light doesn't do anything magical, right? I'm not changing in any way, shape or form the quality of the light. What I'm doing is making it go precisely where I want it to. So if you ever get the opportunity to like pick up a big bunch of straws in your hand and look down them and you can see what you're seeing, and then you literally move your head and everything disappears, that's all a grid does. It doesn't change the quality of light, it changes the distribution, the direction of the light. So what I want to do now, because I'm lazy, I want to try it, I'm praying actually so I don't make this stand collapse, but I want this light to do a couple of things for me. Firstly, I want it to carve him out to the background, and secondly, no pun intended, I want it to be a bit of a hair light. Don't laugh. Peter and I both shave our heads for fashion. It's a fashion statement, isn't it, Peter?
Absolutely.
And it's nothing else. If you knew the time that we spent shaving our heads just to look good, it's the Sean Connery. Right, this is a question I thought of last night, and I'm not being funny. I desperately want to know the answer to this. Has Sean Connery passed? Yeah, I thought he had, because I've started watching all the James Bond films again, and I couldn't make my mind up if he had or not. Right, so by raising it, I'm back to one of those other principles of light. Brightness, colour, contrast, and direction. So I'm bringing the light down, so it's doing a couple of things. Now I've got choices, again there's choices with everything, and how I make the choice will make how the picture looks. So I can whack a load of accent lighting and carve him out dramatically. or I can have a little kiss of light and just separate him out dramatically. Which do I want to do? Well, you know, it's my picture, I'm the author, it's up to me. So, the best place I think to start is my key light's measuring 5.6. If I make my accent light measure 5.6, there's a wonderful property in light that says that any light from behind the subject pointed towards the camera will always appear to be one stop brighter than it actually is. So, go on with that nearly, drop that as well. And honestly, anybody, you can see that if I can do this still for a living, my God, anybody can. But it is about your time. It's about maximising your time. Right, put your hand up if you'd like to earn more money. Seriously, even if you don't earn money from photography, you must want to earn more money. Unless you're independently wealthy, and if that's the case, I am up for adoption. So, there's only, one of the problems that we found, thankfully, is there's only one of me. So I can't clone myself. Can you imagine an army of Damians? It'd be awful, wouldn't it? So I've got to maximise my time. So the money's out there, the desire's out there. If you can have a little paradigm shift and reframe the way that you think about photography, honest to God, we had, I don't really want to name names. We had a lady that came to one of our baby whisperers and then decided that stupidly she'd give her job up, because it's the one thing we say, don't give your job up, you know, build your business up first. She left us on the Sunday, she knocked on the door on the Tuesday, said, hey, guess what, I'm your problem now, I gave my job up, can you help? Because you can't just buy your way on to mentor me, we've got to believe we can help you and you're right for us. But anyway, in the first 10 months, she turned over 78,000 quid because she listened to what she was being told to do. 3 years in, and her husband's left MND&A and now works with her, and they're into a 6-figure business. So it's all possible. It just depends on what your desire is. Now this again is another lazy tip. I don't really want to have to start turning all the other lights off. So what I'm doing is I'm literally just shading the Invicone. That could do with being turned down a little bit more. No, it couldn't. Let's balance it. I said we'd balance it, didn't I? So let's balance it. Is Colin loitering around? Right, okay. One more. Right, so now that light is balanced with the key light. Now normally, if we have more time, I'd have shot each light individually and shown you the incremental build-up, but I am concerned that, well, if I don't do exactly as Colin has asked me, then I'm not going to get a lift home. And as much as I love Scotland, I've nowhere to live, so it's pretty important to do my thing. So I'm just going to test that light. So at this point, I'm not asking Peter to do anything. I just want to see what's happening photographically. So let's see what that accent light looks like. Now remember, it measures the same, but it will come out as though it looks brighter. Ta-da! Simply because I know that any light from behind the subject coming towards the camera will look to be one stop brighter than it actually is. So how do we think that that looks? Does it measure the mood? Does it need to be lighter? Does it need to be darker? Less light, more light, you tell me, or are we pretty spot on? Are we happy with that? Right. You are a tough crowd, you know. If you're all whooping and cheering for Terry and Cass later, I'll be gutted. I'll be absolutely sadder than a sad thing. So now I need to worry about Peter, and now we're going to get him to look. So, because I don't want to move the lights, I'm going to ask you, could you just move that chair a fraction that way for me? Fantastic. And just lean towards me a little bit. That's it, perfect. So I want you to stir down the camera. So like, just imagine I've stolen your parking space. Chin down just a little bit more for me. That's fab. Now you notice my fill light is on the same side as my key light is. Can't be the other side. Because how many suns do we have? I don't mean children. How many of the burny things in the sky? One. So I believe the direction of light, your prevailing direction of light, should all come from one direction. Right, you're doing a great job. Eyes right into the camera for me. Chin up a tiny fraction and I've raised my height, that's brilliant. And just imagine how annoying I've been. Would you like a copy of this? 400 quid. Cash, cheque or Visa. It's entirely up to you. And I'm going to come in a little bit tighter. So we've got a bit of choice going on here. Just unfold your arms for me because I don't want to catch your fingers in that. That's brilliant. Chin down just a little bit more. Notice I'm keeping his shoulders square to me, because from a posing and body language point of view, what I'm saying, sorry I've knocked my aperture down. What I'm saying is be as broad and as hunky as you possibly can. That's what I'm after. Now, what I want you to do is stay exactly as you are. Your left hand, just put it, that's brilliant, just relax. Because I watched him sitting before when he was getting comfortable himself, and I thought, that's quite a nice pose. We'll incorporate that in the picture. So just lean slightly forward for me. Chin up just a little bit for me. And I think there's my picture. Not that one, but maybe the next one. There you go. As I tie myself up. So for me, I pretty much think, let's get rid of that. I don't know why it goes to the middle. But for me, is that mission accomplished? You don't seem very enthusiastic today. Trying to work the damn thing as well. Come on, show me, show me, show me. Or is that mission accomplished? Did we have a preference? The second, oh, the even tighter one. I mean, I've got to admit, it looks quite good on the screen there. But can you see that it all started by asking myself the question, what am I trying to say? So once I knew what I wanted to say, the construction of the light became simple. I was just following a process and answering a set of questions in my head. So I could choose the brightness, the colour, the contrast, the direction. And by following those processes, I ended up with the pic I wanted. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Any reason why you were going for black and white rather than colour for?
Have you seen the curtains? The real answer is because I'm obviously going to post-produce these and I'll send one to Peter. And the colours, because I'm not in control of everything, so I don't know what it looked like, I didn't know what Peter was wearing, blah, 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 blah. It's easier to hide those sorts of things that I can't control in black and white. So that's why I chose black and white. It would have been 5,600 degrees Kelvin. So daylight, yeah. Because that's a really good question, because that's the colour component. You know, one of the problems we have with these, well, one of the issues we have with the clients we're dealing with at the moment, you know, all the sort of fitness people, they all are addicted to fake tanning. And I have to beg them not to fake tan, because when they come into the studio, if they're actually tangoed, then it makes my job much harder. But does that mean I'm okay, or does that mean get off? What does that mean? Do you want me to stop? Right, okay. Right, so we'll take 2 more questions. But yeah, it was balance for daylight because there was no other issue to deal with. But if you want to talk about it more, I'm over there. Come and ask me. Yes, sir.
When you were talking about the light coming from the one area,
Yes.
your light at the back,
Ah, but that's an accent light. It's what I call an FX light.
right? To me it gave a hot spot on the top of his head in a different direction, which kind of took my eye away from the picture.
Are you a judge, sir? Are you an international celebrity photographer with like 18 fellowships? No, but right, maybe if we had more time, I'd look at it and I'd think, yeah, and I'd readjust the light. But there's no point in adding separation from the same side as the key, because that would become a kicker. So it was just an aesthetic choice that I made. And probably, I mean, you've got to bear in mind, we're not looking at what the camera's captured, we're looking at what the camera's sent to the computer, sent to the projector, and up on the screen. It's never a perfect world. So I was checking the back of my screen and thinking, yeah, it's intolerant of what I'm after. But again, it comes down to time. It's as simple as that. But yeah, you know, well spotted. But anything that isn't separation, you know, because that was the dark side of it. So it was an easier trick to show for the audience. It might be, if I did this afternoon and I shot somebody else, or I shot Peter again, there's a very good chance I'm going to do it this way now. And it's just as the creative mood takes me. Last question? Yes, madam. Is there a difference? Right, that's a really good question. The lady said, is there a difference between capturing in black and white in the camera and shooting it in colour and then converting it? And the answer is very simple, and it's going to sound glib, and I don't mean it to. My camera is set to emulate an old Fuji film that I like, and it's set to emulate it with a red filter, which makes skin tones much whiter and brighter. So because I like that, and because it's something I would search for, then if I can get it in the camera, then it's one less stage to worry about, bearing in mind that the important thing is time. Because I can give this as much time as I want, but I'm eating into my own pocket, and that's not what I want to do, because I'm here to make a living. So as I take a picture of you all, just to prove that people actually came to listen to me, I think I'll do a panoramic one. So stay still. In fact, don't. Just put your hands up as though you're waving and cheering wildly. And I'll look at it later and think that actually you still are a rock god, Damian, when the truth is that, you know, you can't wait to get out of here. Let's get Peter in on the end there. Brilliant, even this model was happy. Right, so I'm going to be over there. You're more than welcome to come and just chat. You don't have to give a donation, but if you want half an hour of the undivided attention, that is what it'll take. Please, by all means, I have a Facebook group that we share lots of how-tos for free. It's Damian McGillicuddy Photography Training. If you go and ask to join, we'll let you in. There's a couple of vetted questions first. Follow me on Twitter, because we're about to do some really big things. But this is the thing I want you to end up thinking of as you leave. There is now new money to be made in photography. You have to shift your business and your thoughts and the way you do things. We can unlock that key for you to get in the things that you want. So if you want to have a chat about how we can make things more lucrative for you, I will be in the corner, like baby in Dirty Dancing. Thank you so much for your time. Please go and have a look around the trade, because without the trade, we wouldn't be here. They're really important. Have a lovely day, ladies and gentlemen.